This video is brought to you by MyBookie.ag, an historic card. The first France card is happening this Saturday, headlined by Ciryl Gane versus Tai Tuivasa, and the rest of it is actually really good, especially for a fight night. There's definitely going to be a lot of action in these fights, man. From the beginning of the card all the way to the main event, a ton of excellent fights, man. And not just wildness, but these are going to be technical as well as exciting. I'm most looking forward to Nassourdine Imavov versus Joaquin Buckley, as well as the main event Ciryl Gane versus Tai Tuivasa. I'm extremely interested in how those two fights are going to play out, but we do have to notice right away that there's going to be a ton of big favorites on this card, and also a ton of prospects, but I would have to say the number one prospect of the whole card is probably Mikhail Figlock from Poland. He's an undefeated 26-year-old from Cage Warriors, super technical in the stand-up and well-rounded, can wrestle, can box pretty well, has good kicks, good timing, and his aggressive pressure is always bringing out a fight from his opponent. The fighter of the night has to go to the guy headlining the card, Ciryl Gane. He's headlining the first France card in his home country. He's the number one contender. A lot of people are saying that he might be the best heavyweight in the planet, even including the champion, and can prove to a lot of people that he could rule this division with a good win over Tai Tuivasa. The banger of the night has to go to Nassourdine Imavov versus Joaquin Buckley. These two guys are finishers, especially with the way that Joaquin approaches a fight. Imavov is going to have to be on point with his countering. He brings on a lot of pressure, and Buckley likes to throw those haymakers, crazy kicks out of nowhere. That is definitely going to be an amazing fight. And then the fight of the night, in my opinion, is the co-main event, Whittaker versus Marvin Vettori. They are two of the best fighters on the entire card, and definitely going to put forward a high-level fight here. Vettori's going to have to use his whole well-rounded skill set to be somewhat effective against someone like Whittaker. And Whittaker, of course, in my opinion, is probably the most technical fighter on the whole card. And finally, the stake of the night, a fighter that needs a win, is Alessio Di Chirico. His knockout win over Joaquin Buckley has clouded a lot of people of the fact that he is 1-4 in his last 5 fights, and he just got knocked out in 17 seconds in his last one. The guy has not had a win streak since 2018, and he's definitely going to have to need a win here, and it's going to be a tough one for him. Roman Kopylov is a technical fighter, man, and he's not going to make it easy on him. But we go to our first fight. Nassourdine Imavov versus Joaquin Buckley. This is sniper-like counters versus explosive aggression. But it's interesting because Buckley's the guy who backs up and Imavov is the one that brings the pressure forward, even though their main qualities are the opposite of that aspect. You usually see better counter-strike moving backwards and more explosive fighters moving forward. But with the fact that this is the other way around, automatically puts Buckley at a disadvantage. He has less space to work with, and because his back is going to be on the cage for the majority of the fight, and Imavov using his longer reach, with also being able to match Buckley's sheer speed, it's going to make it very difficult for Buckley to get anything off on Imavov without him seeing it from a mile away. I can potentially see Buckley landing some left straights and stuff, but once he starts looping those punches with haymakers and throwing up crazy kicks and stuff, I definitely see Imavov using that back step to get away from that initial shot, and Buckley's going to fall right into the counters, man. Imavov has an excellent check left hook, and just his jab in general is very snappy. He's always moving with his left hand, which makes him a pretty difficult target to hit sometimes. With his quick ability to move in and out, Buckley's going to have a pretty tough target to hit this time, as he himself does not really set anything up. Buckley is a guy who just explodes and looks for the big shot without actually being intelligent about how to find that shot. Sometimes it comes in spectacular fashion, but usually in those kind of fights, the guy's already getting hit and stuff. A lot of the big shots he throws is probably going to be seen by Imavov, and wrestling comes into factor. Buckley has shot some takedowns in his last couple fights, but you could really tell he's not a wrestler. Imavov, I believe, is a better grappler than Buckley is, so he always has that reinforcement in case anything gets too wild to shoot in, clinch up, or whatever it is, slow down the action and try to trip or take Buckley to the ground. So ultimately, my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Nassourdine Imavov, who seems to be coming into his own, and I see him winning by a second round knockout. I see a counter shot into a head kick landing here, and Imavov, as you can see, is a pretty big favorite. I do kind of agree with it. And then we go to the co-main event, Whittaker versus Marvin Vettori. Everybody's favoring Whittaker. Even Adesanya, who looked at the fight, seems to think that Whittaker should definitely win this, and it's not an interesting fight because how obvious it's going to be. There's rarely anywhere in the fight that Vettori is better than Whittaker. Let's be honest here. When you go to attributes to actual skills, the only place that Vettori is just better would probably have to be offensive jiu-jitsu and maybe top control. That's really it. Whittaker doesn't have offensive jiu-jitsu like Vettori, and he probably doesn't have top control as strong as Vettori. But it doesn't really matter at the end of the day with the fact that Whittaker's grappling defense and wrestling defense is most likely better than Vettori's offense. It's going to be very difficult for Vettori to get Whittaker to the ground, and if he does, keep him down there. Guys who are better grapplers overall than Vettori could not do it. And Whittaker even out-scrambled someone like Jacare Souza in his prime, mind you. And that's going to be a bit of an issue for Marvin Vettori because he's going to be boxing and he's going to be looking for takedowns and he's going to try to do something on the ground. Everything he does is something Whittaker has seen a million times already, with being much slower. Whittaker is faster, he hits harder than Vettori, he has a better understanding of footwork, higher fight IQ in general, he kicks better all around, better dexterity and form and power and everything, better punches overall. I wouldn't be surprised if Whittaker just wins this fight by throwing a right straight and a jab, if I'm going to be entirely honest here. But with the fact that they are opposite stances, you're going to see that classic combo come out. Whittaker's 1-2 high kick with a bit of a feint with his right straight. That combination I definitely see happening in this fight, but I just don't know if it would knock Vettori out because that guy's chin is insane. Oh, and that's actually another thing that Vettori's better at, taking punches. So ultimately, my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Robert Whittaker. I do agree with my bookie that Whittaker should be over a 2-1 favorite. I see this kind of being where Vettori can't catch Whittaker. He doesn't know how to find his shots. In the beginning, it might be a bit confident, but then as he's starting to get countered and tagged and jabbed in the face from a distance and kicked to the body, kicked to the head a couple times, and him shooting but not getting a good grip on Whittaker, I see him starting to get more frustrated, and angry Vettori is really going to come out there and might actually cloud his judgment of his own actions on how to hit Whittaker. So I see Whittaker winning this fight through a decision, 30-27. And then we finally go to the main event, Ciryl Gane versus Tai Tuivasa. This is an interesting fight, but it has a similar dynamic to the co-main event. What does Tai Tuivasa do better than Ciryl Gane? The only real thing is he's a better brawler, he has more power, and that's pretty much it. So just like Vettori over Whittaker, Tuivasa has a couple qualities over Ciryl Gane, but the rest of the dozens that you can name, Ciryl Gane has over Tai Tuivasa. It's a similar dynamic, but I do have to disagree with something. I do not agree that Ciryl Gane should be a 5-1 favorite. That is crazy when Whittaker's only a 2-1 favorite. I believe Ciryl Gane has less of a chance of beating Tuivasa than Whittaker does beating Vettori. And the reasoning is simple. Heavyweight. Tuivasa needs one shot, potentially, to put Ciryl Gane out. Vettori needs more than just one shot to put Whittaker out. Theoretically, that is. I mean, Vettori's a big guy, so he could probably pack some power there, but Vettori being a weaker puncher than Whittaker is a bit of a different dynamic. Tuivasa is definitely a bigger puncher than Ciryl Gane by a large margin, so he definitely has the puncher's chance of winning there. And that's the thing, in heavyweight fights, I don't know if you can ever really have a logical 5-1 favorite because of how anything can happen in that weight class. But here's the thing, how does Tai Tuivasa even win this? That's what a lot of people are thinking of right now. Firstly, the biggest thing going for him is Tai needs to land the leg kicks. He has some of the most powerful leg kicks in the whole division, and he's unpredictably fast. And Ciryl Gane's movement, his footwork, is his biggest asset. It's hard to track the guy down. Even Francis Ngannou couldn't find a shot on this guy. Barely anybody that Ciryl Gane has fought has hit him clean. Now Tai Tuivasa, being much shorter in both reach and height than anybody Ciryl Gane's ever fought, is really going to hit him, but that's where the leg kicks come here. Tuivasa needs to land these early and often. Like 50% of everything he throws has to be leg kicks. He needs to slow Ciryl Gane down because we definitely know this. If it gets out of the third round, Ciryl Gane won the fight. I don't see how Tai Tuivasa is going to be fresh enough in the 4th and 5th to contest with Gane at all. I actually think that Ciryl Gane might have more power in the 4th and 5th for the fact that Tai Tuivasa is probably going to be exhausted. So he needs to be effective early. Tai Tuivasa needs to try to finish this fight before the 3rd round ends. And if he slows down Ciryl Gane's movement through the leg kicks, that's where his punches are going to probably find target, with Gane being flat-footed. And it is something that could absolutely happen. Tai Tuivasa winning this by a knockout is more likely than people probably imagine. But if we look at this fight honestly, Ciryl Gane is better at pretty much everything. I mean, skills-wise, he keeps the fight at a distance. Jabs and leg kicks Tai Tuivasa into a decision can absolutely happen. Just those two techniques with him moving away from Tuivasa and circling away from the cage, I can literally see Ciryl Gane winning just by doing that. But he doesn't actually fight that way. Even against Francis Ngannou, he brought in wheel kicks and stuff. So the body kicks, the head kicks, the elbows, the switching of stances, taking off the leg kicking angles, the counters against the leg kicks. He could potentially throw up side kicks above him, flying knees, and all of this. Tai Tuivasa is in a bit of trouble when it comes to the stand-up. And I'll also have to say, I would not be surprised. In fact, I'm actually expecting Ciryl Gane to shoot in takedowns. Ciryl Gane is not only a better striker, he's a better wrestler and grappler than Tai Tuivasa. And with the way that he lost in his last fight, you best believe Ciryl Gane has been working on his wrestling for months. And a guy his age in the heavyweight division with not that much experience, he's going to get better very quick. He's also probably the most athletic fighter in the whole UFC. I mean, did you guys see when he was playing soccer? The guy looked like he was a featherweight out there. So ultimately, my prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Ciryl Gane, and I'm going to go by a 5th round TKO. And like I said before, the 5-1 favorite is pretty crazy. Definitely Ciryl Gane should be heavily favored to win, but the way that the odds are given it, it's like Tai Tuivasa has no shot at winning this. And that is not really the case. And I know there's a lot of Tai Tuivasa fans out there that are believing that he's going to win this. And there's a lot of people who believe that Ciryl Gane is just going to dominate the whole fight. Either or, the best place to go is mybookie.ag to go and bet on the fights, as they have the best odds that are updating live. The odds have been fluctuating, but lately Ciryl Gane is becoming a bigger favorite by the day, which is great for anybody betting on Tai Tuivasa. For an example, if you put like $10 on him and he wins, you could win 40, which is a great return. But I do think that Ciryl Gane should probably win this. With the way the odds are, it wouldn't really hurt to put something on Tai Tuivasa just in case. It's a heavyweight fight, anything can happen. The guy has one-shot knockout power, and he seems super motivated about the fight as well. So I don't think he's going to win, but it doesn't really hurt. I would have to say your dogs of the card are Nathaniel Wood and John Makdessi. Makdessi more so because he's a big underdog, whereas the fight should be relatively closer. Probably Nathaniel Wood, out of all the underdogs on the whole card, has the best chance of winning. And your lock-in favorite is probably Robert Whittaker. Another one that catches my eye is Charles Jourdain versus Nathaniel Wood. Now, I don't disagree with the odds necessarily, but it is a fight to highlight because this can go either way, man. Jourdain is a -149, and it seems like the odds are getting closer and closer. Definitely a fight to really pay attention to. And the lone other fight that I don't agree with is Nasrat Haqparast being a huge favorite against John Makdessi, whereas Nasrat isn't performing the same as he used to. Maybe those are just off fights that he had and he comes out there and dominates John Makdessi, but it's hard to really do that. Makdessi's a veteran, he's a tough guy, he comes out with techniques out of nowhere, and for sure should be a pretty tough fight. The odds should be closer than they are. And another method you can go to is the parlay. Just group of fighters that you think are going to win to multiply your earnings. And when you sign up with mybookie.ag, make sure to use the deposit bonus, where they'll match up your first deposit all the way up to $1,000. You put $20, they give you another $20 to play with. All you gotta do is use the promo code WEASEL, that's WEASLE, when you sign up. And make sure to visit mybookie.ag so you can win big. And that's the end of the predictions, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. If you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video.